This is how I use AI. You can use Grok or ChatGPT to trade soybean and wheat and get all the analysis that I need. So this is the prompt for soybeans. We can do the same thing for wheat. It's the exact same prompt because it's the wheat future. So let's go over the prompt and then see what we get, and then we can look at a potential position. Now specifically on soybean, it just kind of gives you a really good understanding of what's happening fundamentally and technically with the product you're trading, in this case soybean, and you can definitely get an over 95% probability trading this way, getting really old information which otherwise can be really hard, or you can miss a lot of things. So the prompt is really simple. I'm an option seller. I want to analyze soybean futures to decide what kind of position I can open. And I would like to know the following information. What are some upcoming events or reports that will 100% affect the price? Do not list any events that are not starting to affect the price. Number two is the price moving in an uptrend, downtrend, or side trend? Now, obviously we can do it ourselves, but I just want to see, what is it saying, and maybe to confirm what I'm seeing. How volatility looks in terms of the past 3 months, and then there's a little point here for point number 3. Please use this website. And this is the commodity volatility index for commodities, and obviously I'm gonna link this prompt in the description. Point number 4 is what is the crop and harvest condition, which is really important for agriculture or for the grains. And then according to the USDA reports and the WSDE, this is the World Agriculture Supply and Demand estimates, and then USDA is the the body itself that regulates it or that reports everything. Number 5 is how does the supply and demand picture looking like currently? So do we have more harvest than expected? Are there any buyers for wheat or soybean, and so on. And 6, please add any additional thoughts regarding geopolitical tensions. Then at the end, make the report with the least amount of words and make sure it is to the point with a conclusion at the end. And again, you can use Grok, ChatGPT. I just use them both usually, and then I compare. It's usually pretty comparable. Sometimes Grok is just way more up to date. Sometimes ChatGPT is like one day behind. I'm not sure why it is the way it is, but let's see what we get here specifically from Grok, and it takes a while to think. Let's see if it's gonna come up with everything. This is probably longer than usual. Let's see what's going on. Meanwhile, as it's searching, we can also take a look at the graph itself and maybe do our own analysis. So I do have a position on soybean currently. It's a neutral position, a triangle. It's up about 20% currently, so not too bad. And basically, if we look at the price, it's kind of moving sideways for the most part. And I've already done my own analysis based on the news and what's going on. But let's see what we get here. Oh, it's still thinking. Well, that's way longer than usual. Maybe we get a better answer right now. Maybe not. But generally speaking, what I found myself, and then we can compare to the AI, is the harvest is expected to be one of the best in the last 22 years for soybean. So we expect a lot of supply basically. In terms of the demand, not much demand because China is a major buyer of US soybean, because the US and China are currently negotiating their trade deal. China is just buying soybean from Brazil, and they have a few orders already made from basically confirmed from Brazil, and nothing from the US currently. So not much demand, a lot of supply. Price is expected to go down. This is my own analysis, of course, but let's see what we get here. So upcoming events is we have the USDA WSAD report on September 12th. This is a pretty important report. It's once a month, and it kind of gives you the crop progress. So really big thing. Then there's a weekly export sale, so we see how many sales are basically done for the previous week, every week on Thursdays. Pretty important stuff. Now the current trend is sideways, exactly what we found ourselves, with a slight upward bias in August 25. Price recovered from an early August lows to 2025, and now consolidating around 1028 amid harvest weight. Perfect. Now for volatility, we have it's currently pretty low, which is very true, and down recently from 1 month high. That's also very true. So volatility is really low right now. Now crop and harvest conditions. So USDA crop progress in August 24 shows 69% good to excellent condition for soybeans, and then we have the index 89 setting pods, 4% dropping leaves, harvest not started, conditions robust. So kind of tells you that the conditions are pretty good, and you can obviously ask it to expand and tell you more about every single point, or you can go and research it on your own if you need to. Now for the supply and demand, let's see here. So forecast for the production is at 4.3 thousand billion BU, down from 43 million from July, and the yield is pretty high, exports, blah blah. Now let's see here, crash down, stock lower, average price. So the supply is ample and the demand is strained. So this is exactly what what I just talked about based on my own research. And then you can see how the geopolitical US-China trade tensions escalate with proposed 6% tariffs on Chinese imports, prompt China to shift buying from Brazil and Argentina. US soybeans export to China down sharply, right? So this is exactly what we talked about. And you can see here, this is kind of like what I usually do. I just kind of go and do this and use the prompt, and then I go and research each and every point if I need to see what's going on. Then we have a conclusion: high US supply, good crop conditions, low volatility, and sideways price. So just low risk environment for selling options. Example, strangle, and you can monitor trade tensions for volatility spikes. Favor neutral position, right? So essentially, this is exactly what I have. I have a neutral position. I opened up when volatility was a bit higher. The fundamentals were about the same, so this is pretty good to know that things haven't changed for myself right now. And then for the positions, right, so if we're looking at a neutral position, it could be a number of things. So for example, this current position that I have is strike 1110 and strike 950. Obviously now might be a bit late to get into this position, but let's see, we'll look at 59 days to expiration. So let's sell the, the 950, let's see here, 950 put, and then we can sell the 1110 call. So if you look at the range, what does it look like? So we can get about $937 per contract in credit, which is quite a bit actually, right? And you have a 85% chance to make that profit. You can go a bit wider maybe on the call side. That's what I would do. I would probably go a bit wider, something like that. So it will be 1160. So it will be somewhere over here, which is much nicer in terms of the range, right? So, and you can still get a lot of credit for this position, $787 per contract, right? And then you have a really high probability of profit. And if you take profits at half of the credit, which is what I do, half or less, then your probability of profit goes up substantially to over 95% chance. So let's say here we get $800 in credit, and we want to take profit at $400. If you take a look at the theta, it's 18.5. So you're looking at about 20-ish, 21, 22 days to get to the profit, with 56 days to expiration on soybean November expiration. So that's pretty good. This is pretty good analysis. Personally, I won't open that position exactly. I want volatility to be high. So point number 3, I want volatility to be relatively high, not low. But again, this is how you just go through, go and look through the best deal. And some people trade in different ways. So volatility might not be a big factor. You might sell an iron condor, and then volatility is not that big of a factor as it is when you sell a strangle. And you can open a position here based on this very good analysis, which is really, really good. Thank you again. If you have any questions, let me know. Hopefully this video was useful. These AI tools can be incredibly useful if you know how to use them properly, for you to kind of gather all the information, and then you can do a bit more research on your own from there and make the decisions. And again, I will link the prompt in the description. Thank you again, and I will catch you in the next one.